It's moving, everyone. It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. Oh, in the name of God.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for our very first episode of the LabRatCast, if that's the name that we keep. But today, woohoo! I'm Ryan, by the way.
And I'm Olivia.
Yes. And today we're talking about the Wolfman, Leigh Whannell's Wolfman, which I'm stoked to talk about. Our first section here, we're going to start spoiler-free, so if you would like to listen to what we have to say and then go watch it and then come back, that'd be super cool. But yeah, The Wolfman 2025 release. It is a remake of the 1941 Universal classic Wolfman, Lon Chaney Jr. We did our homework. We did it right.
Yes.
Because we watched the original, and then we went and saw this one at, what was it called? The Regal?
The Regal Cinema.
And it was like a
4DX.
Yeah, a 4DX, which we had never done.
It was on accident, too.
Yeah,
I did not mean to purchase 4DX tickets.
Which was awesome, though, because it
turned out to be really good.
If you haven't gone, like, the seats move, the lights, like, flash, there's, like, even, like,
you
water
get sprayed
effects.
with water and air.
Not sponsored by Regal, but that was cool.
But go check them out. It's worth it.
So we did that a few days ago, and then we rewatched it a couple hours ago when AMC IMAX, and so... Yeah, did it right. This is Leigh Whannell's... I'd been saying this is his third directed movie, and I've been lying. I've been incorrect. I didn't realize he had directed Insidious 3, which we haven't seen.
No.
I know, so we need to do our homework
we need
there.
to see that.
But the ones that we have seen, Upgrade, The Invisible Man, which was a remake of the
I haven't
Universal
seen
Monsters.
that, but I do need
to see it. And now this is his third installment. We love Leigh Whannell. We're huge Saw fans, and so he is Adam from Saw,
yes.
in case you didn't know.
Everybody loves Adam.
Exactly. He directs now, and...
he's Australian.
And he's Australian.
We love Australians.
The reviews for this movie are not great. They are pretty mixed, which I'm going to go ahead and share right now. I love this.
It was wonderful.
I loved this movie, and I thought it was phenomenal. There is so much. The whole episode is going to be essentially us just talking about how much we loved it, which I think is going to be different from almost every other review of this movie.
Yes.
Which is going to be interesting. This is Leigh Whannell directing. We have Julia Gardner as Charlotte. She is, I know her as Ruth from Ozark, but she's in many other things. We have Christopher Abbott as Blake. I know he was in Poor Things. Matilda Firth is a child actress who plays Ginger. And really, that's it as far as cast goes. This is a very confined movie, which I think is fun.
I love a small cast.
Yeah, absolutely. Fair warning for... horror fans, small cast, as you can probably imagine, small body count.
Yes.
Don't expect a slasher. That's not what this is. I believe it was Del Toro, maybe I'm wrong, I should have looked it up, who did the last Wolfman, like, iteration, and it was like a big CGI werewolf versus werewolf kind of deal. That's not what this is.
No.
Don't expect that. It's pretty loyal to the source material, I feel like, or to the original, without going through the same beats, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not like he didn't just copy and paste the original movie. He did his own thing with it.
Absolutely, but the themes are very much there. This is a sad movie.
Oh, it's so tragic. I cried both times.
She cried at the end of the movie both times. Which, hey, that's gotta be...
It's good.
That's
it's a good
successful
thing.
movie. If you cry
yes.
on your second time watching it, I mean, that's gotta be a good sign.
Well, because you're able to connect with the characters in a way that gives you the ability to be emotional about what they're going through, because you can relate, or at least a lot of people can. And then it's just tragic.
It is.
It's a sad story.
When we get into spoiler territory, we'll be able to accurately display why it's so sad.
Yes.
But as far as non-spoiler stuff, it's a tragedy, not a big body count. I think the runtime is an hour and 43 minutes, but
very comfortable.
It feels short. Like it feels
in a good way
though. Like that movie's over pretty quickly. Scenery's beautiful. It takes place in Oregon, and I don't believe it was filmed in Oregon. I believe it was filmed in New Zealand.
Yes.
But very pretty.
Gorgeous.
Very atmospheric. As far as the scares go, I think there's great body horror. Not super heavy. There's a couple of jump scares, not super heavy on it, I think, for those.
I jumped a few times.
Yeah?
I jumped a few times.
So fair warning, there's a couple of jump scares, but I don't think it relies too heavy on it.
No.
But yeah, there's some good gross body horror in there, which
it is nice and gross.
It's the Wolfman. What else do you need? But yeah, the character design of the Wolfman, I know there was a good bit of not controversy, but people displeased with it. I don't want to spoil the look of him too much. We can get into it more in spoiler territory, but I didn't mind it. In fact, I
really liked his design.
It. Yeah.
And I liked that we can cut this out if it is too much of a spoiler, but I like that you kind of get like you see his progression.
Absolutely.
From like normal, everyday, average-looking man to slowly he is changing.
That's true. I do think that we can include this as a not spoiler because I think it's important as far as expectations go in the movie.
Yeah.
As far as like werewolf transformations go, I know like in American Werewolf in London has the iconic quick transformation. It's one scene from human to werewolf. That's not what happens here.
And I like that.
Yeah, we get a gradual, turn into it over time, which is fun. Also, for big werewolf fans, and this is another thing we'll delve into more, a lot of werewolf lore is kind of thrown out.
Yeah.
I don't think we see the moon in this movie.
You are right.
Which is crazy.
We don't see the moon.
It's crazy for the Wolfman movie not to have the moon, which I do think is funny because the moon is on the poster. I don't know if you noticed. The poster has a big full moon up top on it, but I don't think we watched the movie twice, and I don't remember seeing the moon either time.
Either.
With that, silver doesn't play a role in this.
Right,
no
not at all.
Silver bullet. No,
except his necklace.
Yeah, so we were keeping an eye on his necklace the whole time. I'm still not confident we know what it is.
I know. So at first I thought it was his wedding ring, that like maybe he just, instead of wearing it on his finger, wore it around his neck. But later you can see it's like a solid, like, flat, circular piece of silver, and it's on a chain around his neck, but it disappears at some point while he's changing. I noticed while they're outside and he's...
Well, we can get to it. We can get to it. I think, are we good to go ahead and open up get into spoiler territory, start going through the movie? Anything else you'd want to...
My last thing to say?
Absolutely.
Everybody should watch this. It is a movie that if you're watching anything scary, you should watch this movie.
Yeah. Ignore the mixed reviews. Go find out for yourself. I mean, I think that can be said about any movie, but we're here to tell you to go watch it. I think too many people are being like, blah, blah, blah. Like, a lot of people are holding the Invisible Man here and putting Wolfman down here. I don't think that's the case. I think Leigh Whannell's done it again. He knows how to do a remake.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get into it, dude. So, the movie starts with... Okay, let's go. We're already in the woods, right? We start at the cabin that a lot of this movie takes place at. We're in Oregon. We're at... Is a cabin a right way? Farmhouse, I guess, is the better...
Yes, farmhouse. In the past.
In the past. Yeah,
yes.
Our protagonist, Blake, is a child at this point. And he is with his father. We never hear about his mother, I don't believe.
We don't know
where she is. We don't know what's happening. But his dad is a very stern... I think maybe one of the first shots we get a lot of beautiful nature shots.
Yes.
And then we get a military wake-up, I believe.
Yes, yeah.
I don't know if it ever explicitly says that his dad was military.
But I think
very much seems.
Yeah, he seems very military.
Uses military time. Wakes his son up in a military fashion. That seems like such a vague description, but I don't know how else to.
No, but you're right.
Yeah.
And he has his last name tattooed.
He does. He's got his last name tattooed, and then something above it, some kind of emblem.
Sort of symbol.
That keep an eye on that. That'll come into play later. But so we get to see Blake, young Blake, regular kid, seems pretty independent, pretty competent, regular kid.
Definitely afraid of his dad.
Definitely
you get to see their relationship and kind of. I like that. You get to you're getting to know the characters early on, but it's in the sense that like hold on to this information because it'll be helpful later.
Absolutely. And a lot of this movie has to do with like parenting.
Yes.
And relationships. I guess more of from a parent's perspective towards a child, like paired with their experience as a child to their parent, which obviously two people who currently live with their parents are definitely the ones to tell you.
We know.
We can analyze parenting, whatever.
Totally.
It's easy enough themes that they spell it out for us. Easy enough ideas that we can work with. But so we get to see they're going through the woods. There's a lot of mirrored shots through this movie.
I love parallel shots.
So we get a lot of the scenic shots. What's up? Water. We get a lot of scenic shots. And a lot of them will come back later on because we're going to explore this location again. But so we get this beautiful shot of the mountains that his dad explains to him of, pretty much points out the beauty of it. They're in this valley. They're looking at the mountains, says, it's so beautiful. It'll make you forget about all your problems, But they've got guns. They're headed out to go hunt some deer. And so they head out into the woods, and Blake is very spacey. But he's a kid. He's doing regular
curious.
Kid stuff. Yeah, he's staring at the beautiful
Observant.
nature. He stares up at the trees at one point, like right above him, and he kind of zones out into it. And his dad, gets onto him for not listening to him and stuff. And that's something that I want to kind of put a pin in right now.
Yes.
Put a pin in right now is listening. This is something that I was on the second watch looking at a lot. There was a lot of instances of people not listening or not understanding that's talked about, and that's going to come back later. I think we can go ahead and, we're in spoiler territory, we'll say. During the transformation later in the film, they stop being able to understand each other. He's in, like, wolf mode, I guess, with his ears.
It's essentially like a permanent bad trip.
It really
like,
is.
when you look around to his perspective later, and he's, like, fully in wolf form, and he's looking at the woods around him, like the trees are breathing, the sky is like everything is wrong. I can see why he's scared.
Absolutely. I think this is something that I meant to bring up in the non-spoiler section, but Leigh Whannell made this movie. He reminds us that being a werewolf sucks.
Yes.
Like, this is not Teen Wolf, this is not Twilight. Leigh Whannell's here to tell you that being a werewolf is awful.
It's a horrifying transformation.
It's bad. It's some of the, you feel for this character because, oh my god, is he going through it.
It's horrible.
Yeah. But so anyways, we're at the beginning here. They're going through the woods. He's kind of spacing out. Anyways, they see a deer at first. And so Blake runs off to go try to get a better shot of it away from his dad. But it's when this is happening, he gets a quick glimpse of a wolf man of sorts.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, we messed it up. There's a title card to start it, talking about someone who disappeared in the woods in 1995. Who got infected by some kind of animal virus, and it was the virus was known by the natives as like the wolf face. Do I have that right, or is that?
I think you're right. It was something along those lines.
Take it with a grain of salt.
We missed that our first time.
We did. We walked in a little bit late our first viewing, so we got it the second time there. Man, off to a terrible start.
I know. It's okay.
But anyway, so we see who we can assume is this hiker that's got the wolf face virus, but we get just a quick glimpse of him, and then Blake's dad catches up with him and just yells at him, really lays into the kid for it's part of the theming in which they're going with the parents, where the father is trying so hard to keep his kid safe that he's just running his kid off. He's terrifying him. just screaming at him at every, mistake in which he makes. And, you can tell by the way it's acted by the child actor that plays Blake that he's just petrified of his own dad.
Right. And he mentions that later too.
Yeah.
His adult character, he mentions that, like, his father was, like, he was always afraid of his father.
Yeah. But so it's after this that the father then, I don't think he sees it, but he hears the creature, the growling and stuff while they're still on the ground. And so they go sprinting over to an elevated hunting spot. What is there a name for that?
I'm sure there is.
There definitely is, and we're definitely not.
We're not
gonna
hunters.
know what it is.
We
Yeah,
don't
but
know.
an elevated, you climb a ladder and you got elevated position to hunt from, and so they run up there and just hide essentially. I mean, they do just they sit on the ground and just hide as this creature starts to crawl up the ladder, and you get it through. There's great sound design through this whole movie.
Oh yeah.
And so you get to hear every step it takes up the ladder, and then you get to see some smoke from, I'm assuming it's supposed to be cold, and it's just its breath that you see up above the lip of the, was that your interpretation of that too?
I couldn't quite tell. I think heat would be, like, either, like, body heat.
Yeah.
Or breath is another good guess, but they didn't ever make that.
Yeah, it's true.
The reason for that very clear.
Yeah, but so you get to see either its body heat or its breath right there to show that it's right in front of them on this elevated platform. But then the heat disappears, and you see it. You hear like rumbling that you can't really tell what it is, and then you see that heat, smoke, fog, whatever, coming up on the opposite side right behind them.
Right.
It's right behind their head, and so he's pulled some trickery and seems to have switched to the other side. But before anything happens with that, we get, which I didn't recognize, you said it was the call of an elk or a deer or something that calls it away, and it immediately runs and mauls this. I'm assuming it's a deer.
I think so, yeah.
And so essentially saving them in the process. They get to see what it did afterwards, the carnage of it.
Right.
And then we even get one more glimpse of it, and the father, Blake's father, takes a shot at it with his rifle and misses completely, I assume. It didn't look like he made contact with it.
Are you sure?
You think he hit it?
See, it looked to me that he might have gotten it just a little bit, and also it, like, screamed.
Yeah.
And it sounded like a painful
Maybe
scream.
he did hit it because it does run away.
Yeah.
And when we get to see these creatures later, like, they're very persistent. And so he must have grazed it for it to take off and stay away for the end of this scene at least, and not come right at him. And so it's after this that we get to see them back at the farmhouse. Blake is listening to his father on is it CB radio? Is that what it's called? I'm going to have the letters wrong. I think it's sure. on a radio, calling in to a character named Dan, who is a voice cameo by Leigh Whannell.
Which is cool. We didn't catch that the first time around.
Yeah, it wasn't until we saw the credits, and then, because he's doing an American accent. And so Leigh Whannell gets to have a voice cameo as
so
Dan,
cool.
In which Blake's dad is talking to him about how he saw the creature, and he wasn't even trying to, he was just hunting for deer, and it came after his boy, and Dan, you've got to get out here. Don't you want to help your son out? But it's while he's having this conversation that young Blake has ventured down the stairs, hears this, and the dad whips around, looking more scared than angry, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
That Blake's heard him, but this is the end of that scene, but I think we are to assume that Blake probably got another verbal abusing,
probably.
As that seems to be the way that goes. It's after this, though, that we get to cut to 30 years later, I assume, because this takes place in modern day, 1995 to 2025. Yeah. 30 years later, that probably matches with Blake's age.
Right, yeah.
And Blake is a father now. He's a father in a city of some sorts. I don't know if we get... I think his wife mentions the Times at one point, the New York Times. I don't know if that means they're in New York. Maybe it's just the publication. You know, I know that's probably nationwide. But anyways, they're in a city of sorts, is all that really matters. We get Blake, and we get introduced to his daughter, Ginger. They're walking down the street, and we didn't catch it the first time around. I'll admit, I cheated and Googled it. Leigh Whannell has a tendency to hide Billy the Puppet from the Saw franchise in his other films. It's spray painted on walls in Upgrade and The Invisible Man. And in this one, it's a much smaller one, but there's a sticker of Billy the Puppet's face on a light pole in that scene. So it's nice if you're searching for it. If you find it early.
Yeah.
And get to chill
you
out
to have
for the
a little
rest of the movie.
celebration.
Yeah. But so they're on the streets and they're walking, and you get the sense, I think they do this really interesting thing where Blake is simultaneously like his father and completely opposite from his father.
Right.
I think they did a really good job with that, where we get in this intro scene, he's very, very loving, a very loving father.
Yes.
He's got
very attentive.
He's got a better relationship with his daughter than his wife does, because at this time he's kind of working as a stay-at-home dad.
Yes.
Which is different from the, traditional gender roles of that, which there's plenty of relationships in the real world that are like this, but I still thought it was a nice, way to show it there instead of stay-at-home mom and working dad.
I agree.
Blake's occupation, I wanted to talk about this. He wears a U.S. Marine Corps shirt for the majority of the film, but he says he's a writer at one point. I assume you can be a writer for the Marines. Is that maybe what we are to assume? I looked it up, and apparently you can be a writer for the Marines. So possibly that's what
I didn't even
we're
catch
supposed
on
to.
either
Yeah,
of
I mean,
those
I was
things.
digging into stuff that. So that's my assumption. Maybe I'm dead wrong on that.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm digging into a dead wrong assumption, but I think that kind of plays into he's identical to his father while simultaneously not.
Right.
Where he's in the Marines, which his dad seemed very military like, but he's not
But not
combat.
fighting.
He's like
Right,
a writer,
right.
something like that.
That makes sense.
And this intro scene in the city, his daughter is like playing around where she shouldn't be.
She's like walking on a barrier that is like on the side of the road and like balancing on it.
Yeah.
And so he's like, hey, get off of that. Get down, please be safe. And like she's just not listening to him.
Yeah.
And then she eventually gets down after he's like, hey, get down right now or no ice cream.
Yeah.
And then once she gets down, some crazy dude like yells in her face. What did he say? Like, stupid dog, don't get off the leash.
Yeah, which I think there's a lot of lines that are unnecessarily dog related, which I think is funny. It had to be on purpose. But
so smart.
I think you got the line spot on. I think it's something about dog can't get off the leash or something.
Yeah. And then her father's, like, hey, you have to listen to me whenever I'm telling you something. I'm just trying to protect you. But,
but he gets pretty stern with it.
He does. And then he apologizes for it. He's like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to yell. I was just scared.
Yeah.
And so he does a very good job. Like, you can tell he's a great father.
Yeah.
He's doing the absolute best he can. All he wants to do is protect his daughter, which makes you feel so much more for him.
And I think it's interesting because he gets this little, like, bit of rage in a protective way, but very similar to what we've just seen his father do when Blake was a boy. But this scene is immediately smash cut to them at home of his daughter putting lipstick on him.
Yeah.
Where they're playing around and they're just all, and she
playing.
puts lipstick on him.
And
he's being silly with her, which I think is interesting because his dad's very hyper masculine.
Yes.
And so I think that's another bit of like he has that rage in him that he snaps at her, and then we immediately cut to like, oh, but he is different. He's more that hunter masculine military, like he still has some of that, but also he's putting lipstick on and playing with his daughter.
He's able to
puckering up, and then eventually she says that you look creepy, and he starts doing like tucking his bottom lip, and he does like Wolfman like features, like "Arr," and then he even like pretends to like bite her or something, and so the movie's littered with this wolf foreshadowing and nods because we all know what's coming. It's in this scene that we get our introduction to Charlotte, who is Blake's wife and Ginger's mother. She is a editor, I believe.
I think she's the writer.
She's the writer?
Yes. And she was on the phone with her editor in that scene.
Gotcha. But so she's on the phone. It's like it's a business call. And there's a little bit of turmoil in the family where Blake interrupts her on the phone to say, hey, take that in the other room. She ignores him.
But also, was this after we see that he has gotten the letter? That is the will.
It is happening simultaneously.
Okay.
While that's happening, he's opening up a letter that declares that his father has died.
Yes.
Has officially been declared deceased. It's after she gets off the phone and they have a very, very adult back and forth of, hey, can you not do that while I'm on the phone? You know, hey, you know, I'm trying to work too. Anyways. Yeah.
But it wasn't like over the top
it's not
argument.
Bad. Which I appreciate with this because it's a very family-centered movie. And some of this, you know, they want it to be like a not a dysfunctional family, but like a realistic family
one,
that has turmoil. But they don't go too far. I feel like a lot of times when movies are like, oh, and the family's dysfunctional, there's usually a cheating spouse or a runaway kid or something where this one is more of a regular family with regular problems. Rather than extremes.
Which I really liked.
Absolutely. I also think it's an interesting change. Lon Chaney Jr.'s character, Larry Talbot, in the original Wolfman, was not a cheater, but was trying to steal.
He was a homewrecker.
He was trying to steal the love interest, you know, she's trying to take her out of, she was engaged, not married, right, but engaged, but still, so he was a homewrecker. So to switch our protagonist from a homewrecker to a very firm family man, I thought was a very good, I enjoyed the choice. I thought it was fun.
Choice.
Might have played into it that Leigh Whannell co-wrote this with his wife.
Yes. And he's a father of 3.
Yeah, so very much a family man himself, which definitely, you know, played into this. So let's see, it's in this, he tells his wife that his father has
finally been declared deceased.
So they talk about a little bit about how he'd been missing for a while in the woods, and that this was finally, you know, the confirmation that it's a bummer. It's after this scene that we get another day where he goes to meet Charlotte for lunch from her work, and
she's surprised by this.
She's surprised
like,
by it.
You don't do this much anymore.
And they have a conversation where he asks, you know, Charlotte, are you happy? And she says yes, but you can tell. She's not being absolutely fully honest. And so then they have the idea of, hey, I've got to go clean out my father's place in Oregon. Let's do it as a family. It'll be good for us. It'd be good for us. And so this kicks off. Now we're headed to Oregon. This is our setting that we know. They are driving a Pierce moving truck. Pierce. Which I tried my hardest to think about. Is Pierce is that an actual company?
No, but my guess was that they wanted to do what is it? Penske. Penske is a moving truck family company. Yeah. And so I figured they wanted a name that was similar, but not the same.
I was trying to look into cast members from the original Wolfman. Leigh Whannell's family members. I was trying to get anything with Pierce, but I couldn't find it. So I'm hoping someone else does. Yeah. But I was very excited to find an Easter egg on the Pierce moving truck. It says on the bottom, like, moving people since 1941, which is the release of the original Wolfman. And so little stuff like that.
You nerd.
Always makes me happy. They get there, they pull up to a driveway that he says looks familiar, but they're a little bit lost because they're in deep woods at this point. And there's a very creepy figure standing in one of those hunting stands.
Yes.
Maybe that's the term. He's got a gun, and he starts climbing down, and Charlotte's adamant about...
She's like, let's get out of here. Drive, please. Yeah. Like, and you can tell the whole time she is
very
on
uncomfortable.
Edge.
Says, hey, he has a gun. And to which Blake very much is like, everyone here has a gun. That's just how it is.
He's used to it.
Immediately starts cranking down the window.
Yeah, very comfortable.
And so he walks up. This ends up being Derek is the character's name, who is played by Benedict Hardy, who is in maybe all of Leigh Whannell's movies. He's in Upgraded Invisible Man at least. So a familiar face that was nice to see. But he shows up. And Derek is the son of Dan. the guy over the radio. Yeah, so
yes.
whenever he was like, hey, don't you want to protect your son? He's talking about Derek, who's now all grown up, and he's at the camp, recognizes Blake, says it's been, recognizes his name, because he says, hey, I'm trying to find, my dad's place, and names him. Recognizes the name, says it's been a while, Blake. You can't, I noticed, because I was curious to see what Derek's role in this was, because at first he kind of reminded me of, like, the stereotype, I know you just watched Cabin in the Woods.
But the whistleblower?
Yeah, the gas station attendant that's in every horror movie of the, oh, don't go in there,
Don't go.
What's the, is it Ralph from Friday the 13th? It's like, it's got a death curse. Like, but I thought maybe that was his role at first, but I think it's a little bit deeper. I think maybe he's a little bit of a red herring as well, because he's got some creep factor to him.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe we're supposed to be like, oh, could he? I don't know. But he's a creepy guy that's like, hey, let me hop in the van with you guys, and I'll show you the way. But then he has a line where he's like, make sure y'all get in faster. And so I think he's very much probably like his dad and Blake's dad. He's aware of the wolf creatures and is
and he warns them, y'all don't want to be outside at night.
Don't be outside at night. And so he's, let's get going.
Yeah.
And so he's still creepy for just about the whole drive.
The first and only thing he says to the little girl is, hey, cutie. Which she handled very well.
She did
I really
very
liked
well.
that they had her character just ignore him completely.
Absolutely.
That was smart.
I noticed too, she's got a bear.
Yes.
Like, is it a hood or is it a hat? Yeah. Which earlier on, whenever young Blake and his dad experienced the wolf creature, he asked his dad what it is, and he tells him it's a bear.
Yeah.
It was a bear, son, lying to him to try to, I guess, preserve innocence. I'm not exactly sure why to lie.
He didn't want him to know.
Yeah,
about
didn't
Wolfman.
want him to know. And so I think it's interesting that the bear was said there, and now she's got bear ears here. But anyways, we're going through. They're in the car here, and they're driving in the dark. They're having conversations. Derek's very much talking about how your family doesn't seem strong, or doesn't seem tough.
Yeah, tough.
But that's a good thing, because you've got a good, loving family. And it's during this conversation, he's looking at, they're having a conversation. Blake gets distracted, looks back in the road. Wolf creature standing right in the, their way. They veer off the road straight. I mean, it's like it reminds me of Jurassic Park, going down just this cliff, and it gets caught by these big trees. I mean, it's quite the drop.
Now imagine doing that in 4DX.
Yeah, all of our seats moving. I had to cover my drink because it was like sloshing out.
You're in
awesome.
The crash with them.
But yeah, so that awesome. It's a good crash. The AMC that we saw in IMAX, and it was loud.
It was awesome
too. Yeah. But so yeah, it crashes, and they're on their side, the passenger side of the truck down, and so we see Derek laying on the door, and I think he open the door?
Opens it.
He opens the door and falls flat down on the ground. And
they're not too far from the ground.
Yeah,
they're like 6 feet.
6
feet
true.
up.
But the fall, like he lays there for a while afterwards. Yeah,
he's clearly injured.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Blake and his family are all scrambling. They are all pretty okay, nearly unscathed. But they have to climb out the top of the van to get on top. But Blake sees out the rear view mirror, or the side mirror, the wolf creature on the side of the van crawling towards him. And so he goes to shut the door that Derek crawls out of. Yeah. And he does successfully. It's like a long reach down, but he finally shuts it. Yeah. But as soon as he does, he looks down at Derek, and then the wolf's hand reaches up, shatters the window, and then scratches right there on his arm. But we gloss over that right now. He kind of blocks the glass, and then when he looks back down, Derek gets slashed pretty much off screen, but then we get to see a bloody Derek get dragged off screen here. Now, this is the last time we see Derek in one piece. Yes. And so I did want to open up the conversation about this role of Derek, now that he's gone. Where the first time I saw it, is I was like, I was like, Derek sucks. Like, Derek's bad
Derek did suck.
at his job. Like, he's the last... How long has he been living out there with these wolf creatures? And yet we see him go down, I mean, without a fight. But then I was thinking about it further, and I was like, actually, Derek could be the best wolf hunter we've ever seen. But he decides to help this family, and they dump him off a cliff. Like, that... I don't blame him for not being prepared.
Yeah.
For getting dumped off a cliff in a moving vehicle.
They crashed him.
They did. So I'd be interested to see. Maybe we get a Derek prequel. See what no, we won't, and I'm okay with that. But
what is Derek's scene?
Yeah,
that
I'm
we
curious
don't know
to see.
about.
I'll spoil further stuff because we're in spoiler territory.
Yeah.
But we eventually find out that this wolf creature is not the same one as the one from 30 years prior.
Right.
Someone else has been infected. I won't say who yet, but someone else has been infected, and so the disease is spreading. Which makes me wonder, we are never told how many wolf creatures are out there.
No.
So for all we know, Derek's taken out tons of them, but probably not based off how he doesn't get a shot off in this. So anyways, rest in peace, Derek. We'll see your bloody arm later on.
Yes, we will.
But for now, we care about Blake, Charlotte, and Ginger taking just a sprint through the woods together. Away from this creature in the dark. Eventually they find Blake's father's farmhouse, and they get inside. Blake...
But barely. Like,
barely.
You can see the wolf man running up behind
on
him.
all fours.
Yes!
A full,
Oh, God. Those moments,
yeah.
I feel like there are quite a few moments like that where he kind of has you on the very edge of your seat and you're like, oh my God, go, please
absolutely.
make it, oh my God.
Blake, I mean, if unlocking doors was an Olympic sport,
oh God,
Blake gets the gold, no doubt. He goes, what, because it's like the, what's it called?
The outdoor, the outside door, and then the regular door.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2 doors, boom, unlocked, full family inside,
boom.
Shut it. I mean, he's efficient.
Very
Say
efficient.
what you want about Blake, this man can unlock doors.
Our family would have died.
I've unlocked doors so slow. There's not a chance.
Sorry, kids.
But so they get inside and then they have a moment to kind of decompress. Blake immediately goes and checks all the doors. It looks like everything
and the windows.
Everything is locked and shut. He goes to the basement and turns the power on. There's like an outside generator, but you can turn it on from the inside. So he does that. And I think this is kind of nice because it gives us just a layout of the house.
Yes.
We get in one long sequence. Hey, these are where all the doors are. This is because this is essentially where the rest of the movie takes place.
Right.
And so,
farm.
it's like, hey, this is what we're dealing with here.
Which is nice.
It's very nice. I enjoy that. And so, they're in here. We have a sequence where Ginger is trying to go to bed or trying to get some sleep, but obviously struggling due to this trauma.
Yes. All of this happens over one night.
Yeah, which is crazy. But so Blake ends up talking to her, and this is another part where I thought it was interesting that he's similar to his dad, but different. Where Ginger asks Blake, "Hey, is that guy dead?" Talking about Derek.
Yeah.
And whereas Blake's father lied about, I think it was a bear, Blake actually tells the truth here and tells his daughter, like, yeah, he's probably dead, and I'm so sorry that you had to see that.
Yes.
Which is a brutal truth.
It is, but I think it shows how good and healthy of a family they are because they're so good at communicating.
Yeah.
And you see that all throughout the movie. Just
Absolutely.
Their communication level is the best I've ever seen in a family.
Yeah. The very next line by Blake, not to put you on the spot, I'm not sure if you remember it. It is like such on the nose foreshadowing. Do you remember the very next thing he says to her after telling her that Derek's probably dead? Because he's talking about, I was supposed to protect you and I put you through that. And what, do you know I'm struggling to get the words for it, but it's like,
I was supposed to protect you and I didn't.
Yeah, sometimes you try so hard to protect someone, you become the thing that scars them.
Yes.
I think which, spoiler alert,
That's exactly what happened.
I think it's in the next scene that Blake takes a closer look at his arm gash, and this is what's gonna kick off our very slow werewolf transformation through the rest of this movie.
Yes, slow and scary and painful and disorienting.
Yeah. And so we get a scene of Charlotte with, is it gauze? Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Yeah, gauze wrapping up his bloody arm.
And hydrogen peroxide.
Yo, it's so bad. Yeah, they pour the hydrogen peroxide, and the effects are so good.
They are so good.
It looks so painful. It's just brutal. I'm going to take a pause right here. I forgot to mention, I wanted to talk about it. Or actually, you know what? I won't take a pause. I'll keep going, because there's a part later on that will be better to bring it back. So yeah, we get the practical effects with the gauze, or with the hydrogen peroxide, wraps up with the gauze. And then after this, stuff begins to get weird for him.
He starts to like lose the ability to understand what they're saying,
which I didn't catch that it was happening this early the first time around, because I think it's right after this that he's like, oh hey, try to see if you can get anyone to contact us through the radio, and she doesn't respond to him. She just like stares at him. And first time around, I didn't think anything of this. I was like, oh, she mentally noted it. I'm sure she'll do that. But then the next scene, we get Blake boarding up the front of the house, and he turns to find his daughter and his wife both just staring at him.
Right.
And he gets like a little bit upset and is like, you know, hey, I'll be done with this in a second. Like, did you find anyone on the radio? And it's just, I mean, both wife and daughter, which what we end up to find is that the virus, because the Wolfman aspect of this is a virus in this.
Yes,
and so we get to find out this disease has him. Like, he's just lost his ability. That's why I was saying earlier, there's a lot about talking and hearing and stuff like that, because they lose the ability to communicate with each other.
Yeah.
Which I think is so interesting, taking like I wish I could be a fly on a wall for this conversation, because both sides is infuriating.
Yes.
Because for him, what we actually get to see is him saying, you know, hey, did you find anyone on the radio? Can you help me with this? You know, guys, we need to figure out a plan. And then just both of them just going.
Yeah. Just looking at you. Yeah, he was telling, what's her name? Ginger. He was telling Ginger to go back to bed. Yeah. Like over and over, and she wasn't listening. And he was like you could tell he was confused.
Absolutely.
And like he hadn't figured out yet that.
Yeah, but then we come to figure out that what must be happening from the other side is what they walk into the room to just find him with what, a hammer and nails, just going like.
Yeah, he's just standing there like he doesn't know what's going on.
Like he just has these like grunts and growls, and it's terrifying. So that's why they're not responding.
His face is starting to change.
Is that he's incomprehensible and they're stunned to speak, you know. Yeah. Of course, while he's hammering the nails, he's got to slam his finger with the hammer. And this one just causes is this just a nail comes off? What happens with it? I remember it's gross, but this isn't. He has later hand transformation. Is this just?
I don't even remember. I don't even think that's when the nail comes off.
Yeah, I don't know. So maybe he hits it. I think maybe that just kicked off his anger.
I think so.
That had them.
I think so.
He does have a moment. Sorry, we keep bouncing around. That is funny when it first happens, but now the second watch I figured out what it was. When they go to wrap up the gauze and stuff, right before that happens, they're downstairs in the basement. He starts to smell something. Oh yeah. And he opens up like a meat.
A freezer, like a walk-in
kind of,
freezer.
Yeah, like a walk-in freezer, which is lit just like a Saw scene. Like I feel so bad if Leigh Whannell ever wants to distance himself from Saw.
I know.
Because anytime we see like blue-green lighting, we're like, it's Saw!
It's Saw! It's the Saw
I can't believe they lit it like
God.
Saw. That's crazy. But so we get to see, you know, the Saw freezer. And then he immediately just grabs jerky from like, it's like off screen. They just like grabs
it was
there.
on like a table or something.
He just like grabs jerky. He's like, that's my dad's jerky. And then the way he eats it, he's like,
Yeah.
It is the most bizarre, which I think now looking back,
it's on purpose.
I think it's the hunger is set in. He's transforming, and that's what it is. But
I think the smell too.
The smell as well, yeah, because he hawked that thing from the other room.
She was like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, but so funny scene for the first watch, though, where you're like, dude just like wolfed down some jerky, right there. But then it causes his tooth to fall out in a pretty like painful looking, he like slowly grimaces and spits it out,
and that's when they notice the gash on his arm.
Yeah, and so that kicks off that. Sorry, we missed that. Yeah. Now we can come back to they can't understand each other. There's the sound design in this movie is awesome. There's this crazy scene which I believe happens here, but maybe I'm jumping around again, where you start hearing this weird noise where it sounds like knocking on the walls or something like that.
Yes.
And it freaks him out.
Or like footsteps.
Yeah, exactly.
Footsteps.
And his family can't seem to find it. And so he starts looking for it, and it takes him upstairs, and he goes to this upstairs closet and opens it to find that it's a spider crawling on the wall that's like making such loud noises because his ears have become like so sensitive that it is like these horrifying booming noises, and it's just a spider.
It's so
on
cool.
The wall. Yeah, which I think maybe Leigh Whannell's origins are showing here, where as an American watching this, that is not a normal size spider.
That was like a...
That is the most terrifying spider. Maybe those are in Oregon, but coming from the Florida Panhandle, that thing's in my house. That's scarier than the
I'm
wolf
moving
man.
out.
I'm losing it. Like, that spider is so big.
I'm blowing the house up.
He doesn't care at all. In fact, he just shuts the door, which, like, I guess he's got bigger fish to fry. But, like...
I forgot about that.
Yeah, he just leaves.
There.
He just leaves the biggest spider I've ever seen.
You're right.
Terrible.
I wonder if they used a real, like, a wolf spider from Australia.
It looked good. I mean, I guess it could have been CG, and I wouldn't have...
I hope it was
real.
real.
I hope it was real, too.
I hope it was a wolf spider.
That would make sense. I wonder... Yeah.
I just put that together! Wait!
That'd be smart. That'd be smart if it was. But now we need to find out. Maybe someone online has said if it's a wolf spider or not. But so it's after this that he goes to the basement again, and his wife, Charlotte, is trying the radio for anyone, which I think is interesting because on my first watch, I thought that she did that because he told her to. But no, they didn't get to communicate that. And I mean, I guess it makes sense. Anyone would be smart enough to use the radio. But she has come to her own conclusion to use the radio.
She is a total badass.
She is a total badass. And I don't think we really got that until I think this is when we start to get, she kicks ass. She has this.
Yeah, she's got this.
Which is awesome because Julia Gardner's an awesome actress. Very great in this.
She did a wonderful job.
I do think it's almost for the first... Up until this point, she is kind of taking a back seat.
Yes.
But now she takes the driver's seat for kind of the rest of this film.
movie.
Yeah, which is really great.
And she's got it.
She absolutely has it. And so we get this scene of her trying the radio, and it's very heartbreaking of her talking about how her husband's sick and he doesn't know he's sick and, all that.
He's not himself.
Yeah. And we get to see him, from his perspective, Blake walk down the stairs and start trying to listen to her from behind her. And then we get the shift in perspective where we get to see Blake as like a curious guy. Hey, what's my wife doing? And then we shift to her perspective. He's not a normal guy.
No.
He is this figure lurking in the dark behind her and is terrifying. It is terrifying. And then we get to see his face in better light and see that like he's like deteriorating almost. Like
starting to change.
It's starting to change and it is bad. He is clearly sick.
Yeah.
And so the transformation starting, he starts losing hair on top of his head, which I saw some people mad about this. That was like, why is our Wolfman losing hair, not just gaining hair? Which like I do get. I will say, this is probably the least hairy werewolf you will see in a movie. But
it's the Wolfman.
It's true. It is the Wolfman, and I do think the look that they ended up going with in this is very reminiscent of Lon Chaney Jr.'s from 1941.
I agree.
Which I thought was great. I think they did a good job. You know, he loses the hair on top and then ends up growing hair
like
everywhere
the
else,
and
then
by
the end he does have a little bit
got, like, wisps
on top. Yeah, and so I like the design. I think it looks good.
I do too.
So I was happy with it. But we're only getting the early works of it here. Hair starts falling out, but it's from like this point going forward that every time the camera cuts away from Blake and then cuts back, he just looks more and more gnarly. I love. Yeah, it was fun to being like, you cut away from him and it's like, oh god, what's he gonna look like? And then it cuts back and it's like, no. It's getting worse.
Was it at this point when his wife like has him lay down and then gives him the notebook and she's like, tell me, because he like tries, she can tell that he's trying to get something across to her but can't, and so she's like, okay, try to write it down for me. And in the trailer originally it says changing, but in the movie it says dying. Yeah. Which makes it more sad.
It does make it more sad.
Because then you can tell he knows
Absolutely.
It's coming to an end
Absolutely.
Eventually. He's not just changing.
Yeah. And I will say, I wanted to bring up the trailer. That's what I was going to mention earlier and then said that I'd wait a little bit.
I gotcha.
Because the trailer, I think, did a very good job for like all but 2 things, I think. Of the trailer very much front-loaded, like the content of the movie. The trailer was almost entirely only the first half of the movie, which I really like. Yeah. That someone that for some reason remembers trailers pretty well. Like when I'm watching a movie and it's like, oh, this character's got to be safe until he gets to the warehouse that I saw in the trailer or something like that, you know? So in this one, it was nice to be like, oh, everything I saw in the trailer is pretty much already happened. Right. The only problem with it is that we did see Derek die in the trailer. And so as soon as we get introduced to Derek, it's like, well,
we know what happens to him.
Yeah, which like Derek's a small character. It's not the end of the world. Yeah. Something the trailer did do really good though that I liked was the trailer makes it seem like there's one Wolfman. There's only one. Right. And we get to play with 2 Wolfmen in this at the same time, and so I thought that was really good. My other issue with the trailer, we'll get to it pretty soon, and so I'll bring it up when we get there. Because there's just one other part other than the Derek death that I was like, should you have included it? I don't know. But so at this point, yeah, we get the dying sequence, which I do think is funny because if you're like, oh, hey, they can't talk anymore, why don't they just write everything down? You know, I'll tell you why. It took him like 15 seconds to write the word dying. Yeah. Man, you're not communicating anything at that speed.
No, he was losing the ability really to do everything except...
Yeah. But yeah, so it's after this that Charlotte decides, it's time for me to be a badass. Oh, yeah. Let me take this into my own hands. And so she is smarter than I am. She spots a truck outside, and instead of just beelining for the truck, she immediately goes to the basement and grabs a spare car battery and jumper cables, which I thought with the keys
that she'd found earlier.
And so. Great move. Yes. One in which I wouldn't have
thought ahead to.
Yeah, I'm definitely running out there trying the keys and getting killed because I'm not thinking to bring the battery out. But hey, maybe after watching this I will. So she goes out there. And this is another one that we got to see this in the trailer of them going out, but what we didn't get to see is that Blake's following them. Right. Like Blake is a very sick Blake is stumbling out with them. Yeah. He is loaded into the backseat of the car. Right. With Ginger. They sit there while she's moving fast. Charlotte is doing this, but it's still a painstaking scene because you can't jump a car in 5 seconds.
It's another one of the scenes where you're on the edge of your seat, like, get it, go,
but she's not incompetent. She's knows what she's doing. Like final girl mode. Like she's doing good, but still, it takes some time. It takes a few cranks for it to go. But then she finally gets it, has to hop back out, take the battery out of the hood, gets back in, and then hits the windshield wipers. You get a big jump scare. Yeah. Of the wolf creature, the wolf. Yeah. It feels wrong to call him the wolf man because I feel like Blake's the wolf man, but one of the wolf men, I guess. Right. On the hood of the vehicle, it's one of the better jump scares. In the movie, and this is where I'm going back to the trailer. This was another one that was shown in the trailer. So, but it's double-sided here, where the trailer shows it as if it's Blake.
Right.
When I first saw the trailer, I thought that was Blake on the hood of the car.
Me too.
And so it was very fun seeing this and going like, oh no, Blake's in the back seat during this.
This is a different one.
Yeah, this is a different one.
Oh, God.
But still, I did know the jump scare was coming, which is a bummer because I would have loved to get scared by it. But I get trailers, they got to get butts and seats.
Yeah.
And so you got to, show the scares. He reaches, slammed through the windshield, and I think crazy efficiently disables this car.
Yes.
Because he takes, the gear shift and just rips it right out. I mean, we got to see her try to put this thing together for so long for him to, in one swift motion, just take the thing out, He takes a couple swipes at Charlotte, none of them landing.
She's got a kitchen knife, by the way.
She does have a kitchen knife, yes,
so
that's right. She brought that with
arms.
her. Yeah. Any swipe at someone is a brutal, scary, I hope I don't get hit. But especially with this, where one hit's all that has to happen.
Yeah.
If he barely hits you, you're gonna get sick, and it's like getting bit by a zombie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no escape.
Yeah. And so, but she nearly avoids it. They get out of the car. They run on top of this, like, greenhouse, but it's like a tarp structure. And they climb on top of it, which has got to be the worst place to be.
Yeah.
Which they didn't have another choice.
No.
These characters are smart, which is nice. This isn't dumb horror protagonists.
I love smart horror protagonists.
They're very smart, and this is good. They're stuck on top of this greenhouse while the wolf creature underneath them is swiping up at them.
Yeah.
A reminder that at this point, Blake looks awful.
He's getting real close to fully converted.
Yeah, his like bottom jaw, similar to the Wolfman in the original one, like it's kind of like one of these. Yeah, kind of like, kind of like that.
He's got the opposite going on.
Yeah, he's got the overbite, but he gets that stylish Wolfman underbite that we're looking for. So he's got that going for him now. You can see the canines starting to come in and stuff. And he decides, it's only a matter of time before this wolf creature gets to my family. And so I've got to draw him off. And so they still can't communicate. So he just does a point back to the farmhouse, which we just got out of. But back to the farmhouse. Takes a dive off of the greenhouse and goes tearing off, drawing the other wolf creature to tear off after him.
Right.
This allows Charlotte and Ginger to get to the house. You pointed out a continuity error here.
Yes, which I caught last time, but I wasn't fully sure that it was a continuity error that time. But this time around, whenever they originally leave the house to go outside and go to the truck, Charlotte shuts the inside door and the outside door and doesn't lock them. And whenever she and Ginger are running back inside from the greenhouse, she has to unlock the outside door. So unless that outside door locks automatically, there shouldn't have been any reason for her to do that. But, and even then, later on, she goes and, opens the inside door and then opens the outside door without unlocking it first. So we really don't have any reason to think that it does automatically lock.
It's true.
That is the only negative thing.
Yeah, no, it's true. Absolutely. Gotta point it out. Don't want to. But
I know.
But yeah, so they head back in and get into a quick screaming match where Ginger's like, you left Dad.
Yes.
Like, he's gonna die out there and we need to help him. This is immediately interrupted by Dad showing up, Blake as we get to hear a scream of pain in the distance.
Yes.
But then we get to see Blake at the door, just terrifying looking. Yeah.
He's just standing there.
And so, my introduction to horror, probably, I'd say, would be the Walking Dead TV show. And so, any, zombie media, going back to that, I feel like right now, in other circumstances, you're like, dude, don't let him in.
No.
Shoot him, get rid of him, he's turned, he's done. But the way in which this is framed is, this is a family.
Yeah.
It also helps we keep getting to switch back to Blake's perspective. We get werewolf POV and family POV. And so you sympathize for him. You're like, I don't want I want him to get out of this somehow.
Yeah.
But God, I can't. It doesn't seem like he's going to. Does the family kill him? What do they do?
But they're very trusting.
Dude, I did not think they were letting him back in this house.
I didn't either, but they did.
They did. They let him back in the house. And so he repays them by dropping on the floor, having claws bust out of his fingers, and then throwing up a claw in a pool of blood on the ground.
In front of his wife and daughter.
Yeah. And we get to see later, it looked like the other wolf creature was missing multiple fingers.
I think so, yeah.
During this fight, somehow, hand goes in mouth and he chomps away? I'm trying to think of what...
I guess,
Yeah, I guess he went for a scratch and he was like, "Give me those fingers."
I mean, that's what I'm doing in a fight. I'm biting.
Yeah, no, I'm right.
Bite where you can, and bite as hard as you can.
And it seemed to work for him because he got away. So So we're back here. Blake is like on the verge. He's losing it mentally.
Yeah.
And so he lunges at Charlotte, looking as if he's going to try to kill her. Mm-hmm. And the look she gives him,
I know.
She looks kind of pissed off at him. Like,
yeah.
She doesn't look scared.
She's like, don't
she's
you
like,
fucking
she's
dare.
Like, get away from me. And then his like complexion changes from like scary wolfman to like puppy dog eyes.
Yes.
I will say the puppy dog eyes come out multiple times in this movie.
They do. I really like that.
It worked well. There's also a few times where he will just look embarrassed or ashamed.
He does.
Because
like when we didn't even mention.
Oh, we didn't. Oh gosh, we're a scatterbrain.
That's
gosh,
okay. That's okay.
It.
We're hitting all the parts. We're doing it out of order. So like the worst part of the movie.
At one point during his transformation, he bleeds through the gauze from earlier. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You're good.
You can keep going with it.
No, you keep going.
Well, so he bleeds through the gauze, so they unpeel it. It's just this like bubbly, gross mess.
At this point, Charlotte has kicked out Ginger.
Yeah.
Ginger is kicked out of the room. She's not here for this.
Yeah, but so they unravel this bubbly, gross mess. And then it's like his like muscles are like exposed.
Yeah, it is like started rotting away.
And so it looks pretty gnarly. And then I don't know what comes over him.
His reaction is just
he just just goes at it, scratching at it. Immediately Charlotte like backs up, into which he sprints in the corner and starts biting at it.
Yeah, he's like in a squat and he's just and then he loses another tooth.
He does. He loses another tooth doing that. Which my question is, up until this, we get to see what Blake thinks he's doing and what Blake is actually doing.
Right.
What does Blake think he's doing here?
Good question.
Like I can't at this point. It's it's open enough that maybe this is like, oh, the urge just came over him. He just watched himself do that, and now he's ashamed.
Which would explain his reaction.
His reaction afterwards is he stands there just looking so sad.
And so embarrassed. Like, oh God, I can't believe I just did that.
Yeah, and he just walks away. He just walks out of frame. He pees on the ground at one point, too.
Which is so sad.
It's so sad. The man's going through it.
He's just losing all control.
I will say, to bring up Twilight Teen Wolf, the hot werewolves again.
Yeah.
What does this werewolf do? Let's see. Pisses on the ground. Massive underbite. Scratches at his wounds and then bites at them. This is not sexy werewolf.
This is not a smart werewolf. Yeah, definitely not sexy
Robert
either.
Eggers tried to make Nosferatu sexy. Leigh Whannell has no interest in making the Wolfman sexy. He went the other route with it. So when we're back in this spot where he's thrown up the fingers and he's gone after Charlotte, but Charlotte holds her ground and he gets this puppy dog complexion and decides, all right, I need to get out of here or else I'm going to hurt my family. And so he turns to leave, but as soon as he opens the door, the other wolf creature's there
back
and pounces on him. We get a pretty good action sequence. I will say this is something that I commend the movie for. We get werewolf on werewolf violence. We get werewolf fight. But this is not the final act of the movie.
No.
This is not quite the midway point. We're like 2/3 of the way through, which I think is great because we all want werewolf versus werewolf, but I'm glad it wasn't big CGI werewolf battle to end.
I agree.
You know, and so we get this battle with the help of Charlotte. Charlotte gets a fire poker. And
she was swinging at him. She stabbed him in the back at one point. She's not just sitting there watching. She's putting in the work.
And I thought it was interesting at one point. Blake is knocked out. It appears by the other werewolf, who does not kill him, but attempts to drag him away. I thought this was very interesting. Are they aware enough that they're like, oh, we want to spread the virus? I want more werewolves?
That's a good question.
Because he doesn't go for the kill.
Yeah,
so I'm not quite sure what his motive is there, because him dragging him is what opens up Charlotte with the fire poker to start swinging.
Right.
And Charlotte swinging with the fire poker gives Blake enough time to recuperate, pounce back onto the other werewolf, and it grabs at the neck, bites at the jugular, and... Kills him. Like we said before, no silver bullet in this one. A werewolf bite to the jugular will kill a werewolf in this movie. Which I will say, I appreciate this. I wasn't sure if I did at first, because I was like, oh, I kind of like the gimmicky. It's like if we watched a vampire movie and they died by a bullet. Like, that doesn't seem right. I want, sunlight or something, so I was like, I don't know, no moonlight. Yeah, what's up?
I have an interjection.
Yeah.
Do you remember from the original Wolfman, the friend who went into the woods with them, she died and she was found with her neck slashed.
Okay, so maybe it was an homage to that then?
That's where my brain went to watching it, even the first time around.
I like that. I didn't have that thought, but I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I was thinking more of just from Leigh Whannell talked about that this movie he wanted to keep very grounded in reality.
Yeah.
I don't know much about guns. I don't know much about bullets. Silver bullets can't be common, right? I'm sure if he wanted... No,
yeah, you'd think they'd have to be, specially made.
And so to have that in the movie, there would have to be some kind of, when I'd go hunting with my dad, he always brought his silver bullets. And so, I do appreciate, it's okay. We're gonna go without that.
This is more realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know some people are gonna disagree. I know the original Wolfman had the cane with the silver handle that they wailed with that thing. That thing was efficient. But in this one, jugular bite does it. Yeah. Which I'm okay with. It's at this point that we get the reveal too. We get a pan down to his arm to reveal his dad's tattoo on the arm of this creature.
Which you predicted early. You caught on to that earlier than I did.
Yeah, I think I'd be curious to hear if the other audience members did. As soon as it's there's a werewolf in these woods and your dad's been missing for a while, it's
to be fair, we did miss that in the first time around.
That's fair.
We didn't realize he'd been missing for so long before declared deceased.
It's true. But so... it's revealed to be the dad, into which I'm gonna open this... I'm bringing Derek back into this. I guess Derek really, Derek really left,
took a toll on
you, for real. But it was just talking about, I do like that there's a lot of stuff that happens before this movie that we don't know what it is, but it makes it interesting to open up the conversation of when did the switch happen? Yeah. Did Blake's father kill the original werewolf but become injured in the process? Is that how he turned it? Did the werewolf just get him straight up, and then Derek or Derek's father kill the other one but couldn't kill Blake's father? Is Derek's father a werewolf out there? I was curious to see at the end of this movie. There's a very likely chance that there are werewolves still out there. Yeah. In these woods in Oregon. which I do like that we didn't get some kind of cheesy ending of 8 werewolves running out of the woods together.
Yeah, that would have been
yeah.
weird.
But I do think it's interesting to ponder, in this universe, I think there's pretty likely chance that there's a good bit of werewolves out still. I also thought it was interesting because when they get to the farmhouse, almost all of Blake's father's stuff is packed up. Mm-hmm. He had like a flag hung up in the basement, and he had his radio out and all that. But then when they get there, the flag's taken down, the radio's packed up. And so
You're right.
What happened exactly to Blake's dad? Because I assumed he was, like, when we last saw him, setting up shop, hey, I'm gonna hunt this thing and kill it.
Right.
It's my duty as a man. And then died with that happening. But if that happened, why is everything neatly packed up and put away? I was curious to see, because I remembered off the first viewing that the flag gotten taken down. And so on the second viewing, I was curious of like, oh, what if maybe he left it in a mess? What if he turned in the basement and tore down, but no, everything's very neat.
Yeah.
And so
you're right.
I
and like even the equipment to get in touch with anybody else was packed up in a box. They had to unpack that.
And so, and it takes Blake hours to become full werewolf.
Right.
And so even if he did get injured out in the woods somewhere, he'd have if you get injured, you go home, right? And so even if he gets injured out in the woods somewhere, you'd figure he'd be able to make it home before turning. But the house is in immaculate shape from what I can tell. It's perfectly cleaned. And so I'm...
Also, the power was turned off.
The power was turned off, yeah. And so, I don't know, maybe someone went there after him and cleaned up the place. Maybe Derek... Bringing Derek back into it. Maybe Derek was involved. Did. I don't know, yeah. Maybe he was there when Blake's father turned and is covering up. I do think it's interesting that they don't call the police or animal control or anything.
I know.
Maybe that plays into the, like, toxic masculinity, like, nah, I'm ex-military, I handle this on my own, but I don't know. I'd be interested to hear Leigh Whannell talk about Blake's father and his demise and exactly what he had in mind. But also, I appreciate not knowing. I do like being able to ask these questions and form our own. I don't need a handhold and walk back. Speaking of that, I mentioned this to you before. When we see the tattoo on him, they leave it at that. They trust us to remember the tattoo and connect that it's Blake's father, which I don't think is asking us for too much.
It's not.
But and I don't mean this as a diss. I love The Substance. We really enjoyed
We did really enjoy The Substance.
But I brought it up multiple times when we were watching The Substance, where there's multiple scenes in that where, and this is, I'll be spoiler free in case you haven't seen The Substance, but it's a small part. She gets a book and we see her get it, and then later on when it comes back out, they feel the need to give us like a little flashback of her, of who gave her the book and what they said when they get it to her. And I was like, well, we saw that 25 minutes ago. Like we know what that is. And so I appreciate they show the tattoo and they're like, all right, if you guys were paying attention,
figure it out on your own.
You know who this is. It's his last name is on the so
yeah, I agree.
I did appreciate that.
Also, when they don't hand things to you, then you can go back and watch it and find more.
Absolutely.
And it's just exciting to come across more details in a second or third watch.
Absolutely.
That you didn't come across before. And it's easier to come across those things when the people who made it don't make every single little thing obvious. And feed it to you in spoons.
Yeah, I completely agree. So it's after this, we've got one werewolf down, one to go.
Yeah.
And boy, is he gonna go. Because it's after this that he goes outside and essentially gets full transformation.
Yeah.
He's pretty hairy. Oh, his jaw. He's gotta, like, manually, like, dislodge his jaw to, like, bring it out. It's real gross.
Organs are moving all, inside of him. His
popping
bones are cracking.
Yeah, and so it's pretty much full werewolf at this point. And then he goes back to the house. He turns off the power somehow. It's an outside generator, so I'm assuming he breaks it.
Yeah.
And so then Charlotte looks out the window and is just met with him face to face through the window. And to which he sprints to the roof,
Yeah.
crawls in the house, which we don't get to see it. We hear it, and you
yeah.
hear it from Charlotte's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Gets into the house. It's pitch black. Charlotte picks up the knife from earlier. Ginger is in like the kitchen, and they're like, you know, a couple feet away from each other, and we get what I think is probably the scariest shot in the whole film.
Yeah.
Which is Blake's as the Wolfman, crouched right next to Ginger in the dark.
In the corner of the shot.
Yeah, and you get it in the corner of the shot, and then you go back to Charlotte, and then we get like pretty much a jump scare of the close up of the face right behind her. I think it's very well done. I think it was a very good shot. And this kicks off our final bit of the movie here. We're in the final stretch, which is another foot race essentially.
Yeah.
They go tearing out of the house, and I'm trying to think of how did they just go sprinting off into the woods?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to get away.
Just to get away from him.
She disabled him somehow.
She had the knife with her, so I'm assuming she doesn't have it at the end, so she must have lodged it in him.
Right. Remember, like, he kind of lunged at her, and then she was like, "No, get back," and she was swiping at him, and then he grabbed the knife.
That's right, he does. He grabs the knife by the blade.
Yes,
cutting
and so
up his
he's
hand.
like, "Oh, what?" And then they run and close the doors behind them.
Which I thought was interesting, because at first I was like, oh, that's kind of dumb. If he's trying to kill him, why did he hide behind Ginger instead of killing her? But if you notice, when she swiped with the knife, he was reaching for Ginger not in a swipe, but in truly like a reach.
Yes.
And so it must still be something messing with his head. Of he wants to care for his daughter, but
I think so, because he also doesn't immediately go for the kill when they're up in the stand at the end. Yeah, which we'll get to.
And so we to get to that, where they run through the woods and they end up making it to Derek's dislocated arm. Not dislocated, it's dismembered. His arm's gone, but they find his gun. Yeah. And so they pick that up. They find I was gonna say the U-Haul. What is it? The Pierce truck
sideways,
hanging out. Yeah, up, and Wolfman's on top of it, staring down at him.
And then he like runs to the back, and they take that opportunity to run to the
hunting stand. Yeah, and so they get up in there, and we get whoa, hold on, we missed. Gosh, we're all over the place here. We missed the barn. They go to the barn before they run off.
This is important.
Yeah, so before they get, oh gosh, we're blowing it. But so they get to the barn, and set up, she grabs a bear trap and sets it, which if you haven't seen the original, a bear trap plays a good role in the final act of the original 1941 one, so that was cool to see the bear trap back. But so they put the bear trap down, they hide, and he gets in the barn by digging up underneath it, which I think
looked really cool.
Yeah, I thought that was a fun way to do it. And we get another awesome shot of Charlotte and Ginger's perspective of pitch black in front of them, can't see a thing. And then you switch the perspective to he's right next to him, but it's pitch black. They can't see him, but he can see them in werewolf vision, and he is, 2 feet away.
2 feet away.
So close to him.
And like what he sees is like aliens.
It's very strange, yeah.
Like their eyes are glowing, their faces are elongated.
Which I think maybe it's supposed to be like, oh, he's about to stop recognizing them.
I think you're right.
You know. And so he's right on the verge of losing it. He takes one more step forward, boom, bear trap. Yeah. He's caught in it. It gives him time to run past him, run out of the barn. The bear trap's attached to a chain that she chained to the barn, so he's hung up on it and goes down. They go tearing off to where we end up seeing them at the deer stand, the hunting stand. And we get what I hope is a Saw reference. Again, I hate if Leigh Whannell doesn't mean to do Saw references, but this one is, it's real close, you know.
If he didn't mean for it to be a Saw reference, he was really digging himself.
Yeah, agreed. But so he's got his leg in the bear trap, and, you know, he doesn't want us to cut through our chains. He wants us to cut through our feet. And so he eats his own foot, chews through his own leg.
Which is, it could be a Saw reference, or it could be a reference to just when animals are trapped in the wild. Yeah. They have been known to chew their own legs off, like if they're trapped in a bear trap or something like that.
And it is gnarly when he does it.
It is very gnarly.
And it forces him for the rest of the movie to run on all fours.
Yes.
Which is fun. All fours with one foot gone. And so it's like a hobbled
But it's
run.
a fast one.
It is. He's quite quick. And so that's when he catches up to him at the Pierce truck, and they go to the hunting stand, and we get to see a recreation essentially of what Blake experienced as a young boy, of the
more parallels.
Mother and daughter sitting in the hunting stand, and we get to hear him climb up the ladder, and then get to see that fog or smoke or whatever the heat it is come up off of it. Now I think this is interesting because in the first one, there's some trickery. He swings up underneath and gets behind him. And this one, they pause as if he's going to, and then he just puts his hands up.
Yep.
And he raises his head up, which
slow.
I think means that there's still some Blake in there.
I think you're 100% right.
He's not trying to trick him. He's not in full attack mode, not yet, but he's close. And so it's at this moment he's eyes to eye with him. And this is another thing that I meant to mention earlier. That was a weird sound. But the part of the relationship between Blake's daughter and him is that she puts her hand on his forehead. And
he says, "What am I thinking right now?"
Yeah, and it's always, Daddy loves his little girl.
I love my little girl. Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, you're a fortune teller," and we get that earlier on. We get it later on. And so there's this moment where he's standing there staring at him, and Charlotte's got the gun and is not pulling the trigger, and Ginger says, like, he wants this to end. Like, he doesn't want to do this anymore, which is a reference to the Wolfman's always been a bit suicidal.
So sad.
Like
so
the
sad.
Wolfman is such a tragic character, and he does not. Being a werewolf sucks. It just sucks. It's not.
It sucks.
It's
if
not
you watch it,
what it's chalked up to be.
It looks horrifying.
It does. But the first time I saw this, when I saw Ginger say that, I was like, how do you know that?
Because she can read
it's because she can read minds, which
it's her job.
It is her job, and so I thought that was interesting. I don't know if that was the intended reason of why Ginger knows, but I thought it was interesting of she can read minds.
Well, because she said it earlier. She said something earlier in the movie when they were still at the house, and he was outside. It was like, I think it was like right after he'd beat his dad up or something. And he was still outside, and she hadn't let him in yet. And then she told her mom, like, let him in. He's hurt. He's injured. Let him in. And, but I thought, and that could be just, her being his daughter and wanting him to come in.
Yeah.
But also it could be her knowing.
Yeah, absolutely. But so it's at this moment that I think it's interesting because Charlotte still doesn't take the shot.
Right.
Until he pushes the door open.
Yeah, and acts like he's going.
Yeah, and to where she does, she sends a bullet straight through him at point blank range, sending him crashing down out of the hunting stand. Was it a silver bullet in there? Maybe, because it does the trick.
It does.
That is the end of our protagonist, the end of our Wolfman.
But first, before you go, so at the beginning, there was this, like we said, there was this, like, very pretty, like, they're pretty nature shots, but, like, while his dad was talking, he was zoning out, and you get, like, him not listening.
Yeah.
Because he's looking at nature. And I kind of took that as he had a moment of peace. And peace and quiet.
Yeah.
And that was that view of him looking up at the beginning, because then we get the same view at the end.
Yeah, the look
when
up
he's
at the
laying
trees.
there. And I got that. I kind of took that as the same thing. He finally had a moment of peace. Like, I'm going. It's over now.
Yeah, that's true. So we get this moment where they get to have one last moment with their terrible looking husband / father. Gosh, he looks so gnarly. The practical effects in this movie are phenomenal. I think they look
really
so
good job.
They look practical, and I mean that as the highest compliment I can give it.
Absolutely.
And it's after this that the scene that made you cry multiple times is they walk on out to
it was all of that. I was crying for all of that.
That's fair.
Him coming up and her saying he wants to go. Don't say that.
But they walk out to the valley in which they can oversee the mountains that the quote from earlier, it's so beautiful that it'll,
It makes you feel like everything is going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. And so they get to look out at that, and it's immediately, we fade to black.
It's over.
That's the end of the movie, and the credits begin with a big L that just slides in.
It's so funny.
It ends up being directed by Leigh Whannell. It's the L for Leigh Whannell.
Right.
But having this tragic, sad story and then just L. I mean, it's
in tears. It's so goofy.
I can't help but laugh at it. But that ends the movie.
And then it was what's the word? Dedicated to
Yes.
Leigh Whannell's late brother-in-law,
Mm-hmm.
who passed away from suicide just months before filming, which I can only imagine made it so much more
Absolutely.
of a passion project for him.
Absolutely, especially because his wife and sister of the man it was dedicated to co-wrote this with Leigh, and so a lot of emotions poured into this. This script, and I felt them in the final product.
Absolutely.
It makes me a little sad that there's such mixed reviews for this. I think the reason for it is that Leigh Whannell went out to remake Wolfman.
Mm-hmm.
He not werewolves, not anything. He went to get the sympathy and the tragedy aspect of the 1941 Wolfman, modernize it, tell it in its own way.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that he did a great job at that.
I thought so too.
Some other thoughts I had during it, costuming. Blake does wear a green top and brown bottoms, which is what the original 1941 Wolfman wore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so I did think that was cool.
That is cool.
Something interesting, and I might just be pulling at nothing here. This might be nonsense. But I noticed that Blake wears like plaid or like flannel at the very beginning of it, and then Charlotte wears like a red flannel through the entire, final, the main sequence of the movie of it. I don't know why this is. If you Google werewolf costume, they're always wearing flannel.
You're right.
Why is that a thing? Why are werewolves wearing flannel?
That's a good catch.
I looked it up and I didn't find like a firm answer other than people being like, they're outdoorsy. But like, why are...
If you're in the woods,
yeah, I guess so.
you must be wearing flannel.
And so I want to give the costuming team props.
Yeah.
If that was... I'll give them props no matter what. The costuming in the movie was great.
It was all
Don't take away their
wonderful.
credit. But I'm curious to see if they were like, yeah, man, they're outdoors. Give them flannel. Or if there was like a... Yeah, for a sec, because I feel like red flannel in particular. I'm gonna pull it up. I'm gonna pull up a picture.
I think you're right. It's red flannel.
Werewolf costume, and then I'm curious to see what we get here. Images. Yeah, I mean
Red and black.
That's a lot of red flannel
and black.
there. I don't know if that's gonna show up there, but we've just got so much red flannel. Listen, I care about Derek and the red flannel. That's what I care about here.
We've got to figure out. Oh man, this rocking chair is knocking.
Yeah, but anyways, sorry. There's a side thought that I had while watching it.
It's an important thought.
But yeah, another side, I forgot about this. This is produced by Blumhouse, but also by Ryan Gosling.
Really?
Yeah, I believe he was originally supposed to star in it, but ended up pulling out at some point and just went to a producer role. I forgot about that.
I gotta respect that.
I do, and it would be weird seeing Ryan Gosling playing Blake in this.
I agree. I think this actor did a wonderful job with Blake, and I want to see the other movie he was in. What is it?
Possessor. We have not seen Possessor, but we've heard it's a good body horror, starring Christopher Abbott, who played Blake in this, and so we're gonna need to check that out. But yeah, is it outro time? You got anything else you want to add to it?
I think I've said everything I want to say.
Yeah, I mean, we
Go
love the
watch
movie.
it.
Seriously, go watch it. If you are still listening to this or watching this, thank you so much for doing that. As of right now, I believe Heart Eyes comes out early February. That is the next new movie that I think we would like to talk about.
Yes.
Other than that, if you have any ideas that you would like to hear us talk about,
We would love to hear them.
Yeah, if you have any ideas of how to make this better, if you
any thoughts,
anything
comments.
you liked, anything you didn't like, we'd love to know. And very importantly, and I really want to push this everywhere, if you are a independent filmmaker, or want to be independent filmmaker, know someone who's an independent filmmaker, and they have made anything horror related. It can be a feature film, it can be a 2-minute short. We do not care. Please send it our way.
We would love to see it.
Yes, labratHorror@gmail. We will be responding to that. We will make a video reviewing it and talking about it because it gives us something fun to watch and talk about, but it also gives us a platform to share, and we would love to make this a hub for independent horror fans to get their stuff put out there. And so please send it our way. We will make a video watching it, talking about it, reviewing appreciating it. But yeah, other than that, I think that is all. Thank you so much for joining us, and we're out of here.
Say goodbye, Beetlejuice.